Hello and welcome back to Factory Town. If you're watching this series in real time, we just finished campaign level 5, which took us, 12 or something episodes to do, but we managed to learn a lot about the some of the magic mana items. We haven't gotten into the elementals yet, but we have a little bit of time for that for this series, and we'll figure it out as we go if we need to. So if you're wondering where we're at, that's what we're going to cover for the first little bit of this episode, because we're now back into the custom map with the default settings, which is a medium-sized map. It has, I can't remember how many chunks, 6x6 I think chunks, so 36 chunks. And we spent some time building out kind of a bit of a starter base here with a bunch of local items being provided and fed in to the 3, I think, stores that we had set up of the 5 total. No, we had 4 set up. We have the tavern set up, but just barely. I think we just built it just to build it. But we have that going, and we were starting to outpost things because we were talking about putting in a rail network and having the rail network bringing in all the stuff we need to make or bringing all the stuff that we were making to sell it here at the stores that we need to sell it at. So in the handful of episodes leading up to where we switched gears and went back to the campaign, we had been outposting various food-based items for the food market. I guess I should stay over there for the food market. So we had outposted, and I'll jump over there, but we outposted bread for grains, we outposted eggs, we outposted cooked fish for the fish category, we outposted cooked chicken for the chicken category, cooked beef for the beef category, and then we had also talked about outposting fruits and veggies and fruit juice, I think in either the last or the second to last episode of this series, or the previous or second to most previous episode of this series, and we hadn't quite gotten to milk and butter yet. And then we started to look at, okay, well, what kind of research do we need to do to keep things moving otherwise? And we found out that we needed to start looking at things like mana processing, which we did do a little bit of here before we switched gears and went back into the campaign. But that was helpful for us then because we kind of reinforced the stuff that we figured out here for mana crystal making. Among other things that we don't need, or we're going to need more than one of these going. And we're also going to need some mana bricks, which we have going here, which one is probably enough for that, at least for a while, because they're not used in production, just used in construction. And then, so we had these mana crystals coming in here to the school, where we're using them to research mana transmission. And I think if I recall correctly, in the campaign level 7, or level 5, this was substituted in for gold. So we were shipping gold around to make this research, and I think some of these other mana power maybe, we're using gold bars instead of mana crystals for that research, which is interesting. And definitely different, and kind of good to learn or good to do, even though it's different here. Geez, sorry about that. Nice big yawn on my part. So we were doing a lot of this stuff, and we also talked about there's a second power boost in the game, and I think that second power boost is the Omni crystals, the Omni something, Omni power, Omni, maybe even this mana reactor. I'm not sure. There's something to do with boosting production and buildings with a with magic, other than the steam boosts that we've already talked about a few times here in some of the production buildings. Most of the production buildings, in fact. So we've talked about that, but we didn't quite get into it because I don't know. So I think what we're going to do is we're currently researching that mana transmission, which we did use in the campaign, and we did learn a little bit about in the campaign. But we do, but it might be a little bit different in here. I'm not sure because of the rule set associated with that campaign level. So, short story long, if you're watching this in real time, then we just finished campaign level 5 yesterday. If you're watching this in after the fact, then make sure that you go and check out the campaign series, kind of running in tandem or back and forth with this one here on YouTube. And check that one out so that you can kind of see some of the concepts that we learned in the campaign that we're going to try to apply here. So coming back into this, I just want to go through, I spent a good amount of time between recording the last episode and recording this one, probably about 2 hours, actually looking at some of the math here and making sure that I did the math right. And in large part, I did, at least at one point in time. But then specific for this bread manufacturing here, I did the math right, and then I did the math wrong, and then I think I did the math right again, and then I was like, I'm not going to mess with this until I'm ready to come back here and fiddle with it. So I redid the math, and if we want to have 3 bread per second, which in order to maintain our happiness level, we need between 1.25 and 3.33 per second. So 3 seems like a good number. We need to have 2 kitchens, because each kitchen will provide 6 bread per second. I'm sorry, 1.5 bread per second, because it's 6 bread because of the 400% total boost from happiness, and then the 50% additional boost, which is stackable from the steam. That's 6 bread every 4 seconds, which is 1.5 per second. So that means we need 12 grain coming in. I'm sorry, 12 flour coming in. Oh, wait, geez. 6 every 4 seconds, which is 1.5 per second, times 2 kitchens. That's a total of 3 bread per second. 3 bread means 6 flour per second. Because it's 2 flour makes 1 bread. So that's 6 flour per second. 6 flour per second, again, has a boost of a total boost of 600, 400 plus 400 for the happiness. That's plus 300 for the happiness. That's 400%. Plus the 50% boost from the steam booster gives us 6 flour every 4 seconds, which is 1.5 per second. And we need 6 flour, so we need to have 4 grain mills. Perfect. In order to get 6 flour per second, we need 6 times 3, 18 grain per second. 18 grain per second can be provided by, I think, just 2 farms. 2 farms with like 6 shoots coming out of them, but 2 farms. So we're going to change this part up here. 2 farms, 18 grain per second. That's going to be 9 total workers, so we're going to end up putting 5 in each because we're not going to be able to balance it any better than that. The reason being, a worker can harvest, a fully boosted worker, happiness boosted worker can harvest 4 grain, because they'll be up to 400%, 4 grain every 2 seconds, which is 2 per second. So in order to get 18 grain per second, we need to have 9 workers times 2 per second equals 18 grain per second. And in order to get 18 grain per second farmed from the farm tiles, if the farm tiles are fully supplied with fertilizer and water, then they will grow. The base growth time on a farm tile, grain's base growth time on a farm tile is 80 seconds. And so if they're fully watered, fully fertilized, that's 26.67 seconds, which means that we need to have, or that means that we can produce, breathe, Wally. That means that since these produce on average 7 grain per tile, they will be producing 0.2625 grain per second per tile. So if we need 18 total grain per second, you take 18 and divide it by 0.2625, and you get, I didn't actually do this number, 18 divided by 0.2625, you get 68.5, a little more than 68.5 farm tiles needed. And so I think I'm just going to do 72, because that's a little bit more per, and it might compensate for a little bit of wiggle room. So we're going to round up on the farm tiles by a large amount, or decent amount. all the time just to compensate for it. So that works, except that's only one bread recipe. There are two. There is bread made from flour, and then there's bread made from flour and potatoes. This is 1 flour, 1 potato. This is 2 flour. So the good thing with that is that if we use that recipe, that cuts our flour needs in half, which means that we only need 2 grain mills making flour and only need 1 farm farming all the grain we need. 36 farm tiles, or at least 35 farm tiles. It means we only need 9 grain per second instead of 18, and it means we only need 5 workers instead of 9 or 10, really. But then we also need another farm farming 3 potatoes per second, because remember, we needed to have originally 6 flour per second here, but with the new recipe, we need to have 3 flour and 3 potatoes. So that means that we need 1 farm farming potatoes also. So now we're back up to 2 farms, which is okay. That farm, though, only needs 3 workers instead of the 5 we would have needed for grain. So that's now only 8 workers instead of 10. And we need only 6 farm tiles, and I might put a couple extra down, but 6 farm tiles should produce 3.15 potatoes per second. And that's because potatoes produce around twice as many items per farm tile as grain, but have the same growth time as grain. So potatoes, and for that matter, just for posterity's sake, carrots, are twice as effective as grain, growth-wise. So we only need 6 farm tiles, and again, I might put down a couple extras. Maybe we'll do 8 or 6, 7 or something like that, just to make sure we have enough, because farm tiles are dirt cheap. So if we have a few extra there, it's fine. So that's 1 farm with 6 plus farm tiles will produce more than enough potatoes per second for us, for 1 farm, for 2 kitchens. Sorry, another big old yawn. It's been an exhausting week. Over the course of, and plus the 2 grain mills and the 1 farm growing grain. So I think we're going to end up converting this bread setup to that, just because it's so much less stuff than using the flour, the full wheat bread, the full grain bread. So the next piece that we set up was eggs. Eggs are much easier. We are super boosting the pasture for the eggs. We're going to end up doing a 4th boost here, 4th upgrade here, sorry, which will give us an eventual plus 200% speed boost on top of the happiness boost. So the happiness boost is plus 300%, so it gives us a 400% happiness boost, and then the upgrade boost is going to be plus 200%, which will give us 3 times 400, which is 1200%. So that means we'll be producing, 12 eggs per craft here. Each craft is 3 seconds, which means we'll be getting 4 eggs per second out of this pasture. And we need to get between 3.33 and 5 eggs per second. So 4 is a good number. It might not quite make it, but I think it'll be okay in terms of keeping everybody happy. So 4 eggs per second, which means we need 4 animal feed per second. 4 animal feed can be easily made in 2 grain mills without a steam boost, because each grain mill without a steam boost will produce 400% when everybody's perfectly happy here. The speed will be 400%, that is. So we'll produce 4 grain every 2 seconds per grain mill. So that's 4 grain per second with 2 grain mills, which is what we need. 4 feed per second with 2 grain mills, which means we need 4 times 2, or 8 grain per second. 8 grain per second can be easily provided by 4 workers, because each worker fully boosted can produce 2 grain per second, fully sped up, fully happy. And so then we need to have 8 times 8 divided by 0.2625, which is, if you round up, about 32 farm tiles, which is actually what we have here. So this setup here is perfect. We have 16 farm tiles here, 16 farm tiles here. Again, we could probably get away with 30, but I think 32 is a better deal, or a better idea. And then these should be enough chutes and enough grain mills, and we should be good to go here. So eggs is happy. And again, this is assuming that we don't get any more boosting from magic. All of this is assuming we don't get any more boosting from magic, because we don't know what that's going to give us just yet. So we may have to recalculate some of these and do something else in the end, but at least for now, no magic boosts means this is where we're at. If the magic boost happens to be the same as the steam boost, maybe in some places we do steam, some places we do a magic boost, some places we do both. I don't know. So the next thing we calculated was cooked fish, and we ended up deciding that we were going to put anything fish related or ocean related out here in these very, oceany areas. So we talked about here 3 kitchens, no steam boost, so they're a 400% boost. We need to get between, where's it at? 1.25 and 3.33 items per second. A 400% boost here will be 4 items every 5 seconds, which is 0.8 items per second, which means that 3 kitchens gets us 2.4, which is a good point in between those two numbers. 2.4 items per second, 2.4 fish per second. So at 2.4 fish per second, we need to have cooked fish per second. We need to have 2.4 raw fish coming in per second. And one cloth belt can only carry 1 item per second. But we're going to end up upgrading these 2 metal belts, so this should be okay. I just don't know exactly if this is going to be enough fishing boats, and I don't know how to measure that. They take a certain amount of time to pick up 8 fish, but I don't know what that certain amount of time is. And it was a little hard to measure, so we're just going to hope that it's enough, and if not, we'll add more fishing boats, and we'll call it even then. So this one was pretty easy to set up as well out here, and then we're going to move on to the next item, which is cooked chicken, and then cooked beef. Cooked chicken we set up down here. We have I think we're going to want steam boosted kitchens on this. Yeah, 2 steam boosted kitchens. So they will make 6 items every 5 seconds, 1.2 per second. We need to have 2.4 chicken, and for that matter, 2.4 beef per second is what we're targeting, because the range is 0.71 to 2.5. So 2.4 is a very good number. And by the way, I talked about this a couple episodes ago, or several episodes ago. Where I'm getting these numbers from is from the wiki. There's an amount of time that a store will maintain the happiness after an item is consumed, and there's the amount of time that the item takes to consume, which also causes happiness. So each item in a store is assigned to a tier, and depending on what tier it's in, quality tier it's in, it has a certain amount of time that it takes to consume, during which time it generates happiness, and then a certain amount of time that the happiness takes to wear off. So if you add those 2 times together, then that is the minimum amount of time that you have to deliver an item to a store to deliver to a house in order to keep everyone happy. And then the maximum amount of time that I'm using is the consumption time for each item, and I'm multiplying those numbers out for 100 houses. And that is because eventually we can have 100 houses. So the plan is to have the 100 houses. So basically, we're down to 2.4 here on the kitchen, or on the cooked chicken, because we needed between 0.71 and 2.5. So we need we're going to produce 2.4 cooked chicken per second. Each one of these can produce 1.2 because it's 6 items with both boosts, divided by 5, which is 1.2. So together they're producing 2.4 cooked chicken per second, which means we need 2.4 raw chicken per second. 2.4 raw chicken, if we upgrade these pastures one time, that makes them also a 6x multiplier, because it's a plus 50%. So it's the same as the steam boost. One upgrade here is the same as the steam boost. So then we're producing 6 cooked chicken every 5 seconds, which is perfect because that's 1.2 per second times 2 pastures, which is 2.4 chicken per second. In order to produce 2.4 chicken per second, we need twice that much, so 4.8 feed per second. If we have 2 grain mills, which we do here, that are steam boosted, they'll produce 6 animal feed every 2 seconds, which is 3 per second. That's a little bit more than we need, but it wouldn't be enough if we didn't steam boost them, because it would only be 4 every 2 seconds per grain mill, or 4 per second. So that's not enough. We need 4.8. So we're going to steam boost them all and have 6 feed per second, which means that we're going to have a need for 12 grain per second. 12 grain means 6 workers, because 1 worker does 2 grain per second fully boosted, which means around 48 farm tiles total between the 2 farms. We only actually need 80% of that because of that making 6 feed per second here. We only need 4.8, which is 80%. So we really only need 80% of 48, which is just under 40. But I might just build all 48 just for fun. And we really only need 80% of 6 workers, which is less than 5, but we need to have 2 farms anyway, so we might as well put 3 in each and call it a day. Or we have to put 3 in each anyway in order to get at least 5, so we're going to do that and call it a day. So that's chicken, and beef is actually very similar. The big difference here is that beef takes the same amount of time to cook, so again we need 2.4, but the problem is beef takes 10 seconds to grow, whereas chicken only took 5 seconds to grow. So we need to upgrade these pastures 4 times so that they'll produce 12x instead of just 6x. So they'll produce 12 beef every 10 seconds instead of just 6, which means that we'll still be getting the 1.2 beef per pasture, 2.4 total beef per second, which means that we need to have 2.4 times 4, or 9.6 animal feed per second, and that means we need to have 4 boosted grain mills. 1 grain mill, of course, produces 6 every 2 seconds, or 3 per second, which means that 4 of them will produce 12 feed per second. Again, we only need 9.6, which also happens to be that 80% line. And then that ends up, since we doubled the grain mills, we also double the farms, and we also double the farm tiles. So now we have 4 farms and 96 farm tiles, unless we drop it down to the 80% line, which I, again, am probably not going to do. Okay, well that was extensive, and that covers everything that we've already built, and we're now 2/3 of the way through the episode. So then we started talking about carrots or potatoes, growing those for the vegetable requirement, and growing berries for the fruit requirement. We need to have 2 to 4 fruit per second. So I'm going to target around 3, and actually it's just over 3. It's 3.15. And the reason for that is because a farm tile growing berries, and by the way, fruit is berries, apples, or pears, but apples and pears are both grown on trees, so they're grown on tree planters, not a berry bush that's grown on a farm tile. Farm tiles we can boost with water and fertilizer. Tree planters we cannot boost at all. So I want to avoid trees whenever I can for production items like food. So I'm not going to use apple trees or pear trees in creating the fruit to sell, or in a minute, the fruit juice to sell. So berries grow 50% longer, take 50% more time to grow than grain, but they yield the same amount per tile. So they yield around average of 7 items per tile. They take 120 seconds to grow unmodified. So that's 40 seconds to grow modified, which means 0.175 items per second per tile. So that means that in order to produce around 3.5 berries per second, which is what we're going to target, we need to have one farm, which is cakework. We need to have 2 workers, because berries are picked every 2 seconds. So one worker can pick at 400%. One worker can pick 4 berries every 2 seconds, or 2 berries per second. So that's 2 workers, 1.75 workers, but 2 workers working at one farm with 20 farm tiles, because 20 times 0.175 is 3.5. So 20 farm tiles, 2 workers, 1 farm. That's plenty of berries for what we need to sell at the food market. Next is the carrots or potatoes. We're going to go ahead and do carrots here because we're going to do potatoes for the bread. So I figured we'd do carrots here. It's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. They have the same everything. You get 1 carrot or 1 potato every 3 seconds, so it doesn't matter. But notice it is every 3 seconds. So 1 worker at 400% can produce 1 carrot every 1.3 seconds. We need to target a carrot every, every 2 to 4 seconds again. But carrots grow much faster than berries. They grow the same speed. Carrots and potatoes grow the same speed as grain. And carrots and potatoes give us that double yield compared to grain. So we get 14 items every 26.67 seconds, which means that we are producing just over half an item per second per tile. So putting all that stuff together means that we need to have 1 farm with 3 workers, because 1.33 items times 3 is 4 items. That's a little bit more than what we need, or that's the maximum amount we need. And 6 farm tiles is plenty to give us 3.15 veggies per second. And I may add in a 7th farm tile, which would give us like 3.675, I think. Quick napkin math here, or quick mental math here. 7th farm tile will give us a little bit more. Maybe we even do the 8th farm tile to get the full 4 items per second. For that, you might as well. And then we'll be producing 4 items per second with 8 farm tiles, which is perfect. And that'll take care of carrots / potatoes, well, veggies. By the way, sorry about that. Tomatoes produce way worse. Way worse. They only produce, on average, it looks like about 5 tomatoes per tile, and they have a double time production compared to potatoes and carrots. Now, what I don't know is, and I think we might have tested this in a previous episode, but because tomato vines stay there, is the time cut in half in subsequent pickings? And I don't know, but I'm not going to bother. Potatoes and carrots work perfectly fine, so why bother? So we're gonna do carrots here. We have that one of them actually already planted there for whatever reason. I don't remember why we did that, but we did it. So that takes care of fruit and veggies. But we also need fruit juice, which we haven't set up yet. Which is actually where we're going to start this episode. And I'm going to go a little bit long here because I did just spend 25 probably minutes recapping all the recipes we set up. So we're going to go ahead and do this down here in the same area as well. We're going to end up picking up a lot of this junk, either deleting it outright or trying to collect it, which was another thing we set up toward the end of the series before we detoured. We have now a bunch of coal being loaded into barns, loaded into a train station, and loaded into a train, sending that coal over here. And we need to daisy chain a few more of these because they're all full, but we're running in pause right now, so it doesn't really matter. And I'll work on that off camera, I think. Whatever we're going to collect versus just delete or work around or whatever. So we have a crap ton of berries over here, which we could get those wild, but I'm tempted to just plant my own custom berries. But anyway, so we need to have a kitchen. And the kitchen makes fruit juice. And it makes the fruit juice at 1 per 3 seconds. So if we fully steam boost this, that means we'll get 6 every 3 seconds, which means that's 2 per second. And we happen to need 0.71 to 2.5 juice per second. So 2 per second's a very good number. So we're going to have one kitchen, steam boosted, making fruit juice, 2 per second. That means that it's going to need 2 per second times 2, 4 per second fruit, which is honestly hardly any at all. And in order to get 4 berries, because we're going to use berries, 4 berries per second, that means we're going to need 1 farm, and we're going to need 2 workers. And then we're going to need basically 16 farm tiles, which is pretty crazy. So we'll go ahead and stage out a farm for that. So what we could do, this might be even better, is instead of doing 2 farms here, because we really don't need 2 farms for fruit, we could have, move you by 1 more tile. Yeah, we could have 1 farm. That 1 farm would supply the fruit for this directly, and then also supply the fruit for the fruit juice. And so we need to have a total of 3.5 to send to the place. And actually, we could even round that up to 4. How many do we need total? Fruit? 4. We could round that up to 4. Which would be 2 full workers for that, plus a bunch of farm tiles. Maybe 24 farm tiles or something like that. Whatever 4 divided by 0.175 is farm tiles, plus 2 more workers to supply enough berries to the fruit juice maker, and then 16. Something's not right. Oh, I miscalculated. It's not 16 farm tiles. It's 4 divided by 0.175. I messed up. I did the gray numbers there. 23. So if we said 24 farm tiles there, I think that would be good. So if we did 1 farm growing berries, and it had 48 farm tiles, 24 for the juice, 24 for the direct ship, and it had 4 workers, and it had maybe 2 chutes going into the kitchen and 2 chutes going directly into the train station, then we would have plenty of fruit and fruit juice, and then the veggies would still be the veggies. Although we could put all 3 of these in the same station, and we probably should put all 3 of those in the same station. So that's that takes care of fruit juice, which is actually even better than what I had kind of planned in the last preceding 2 hours before I started recording this episode. So finally, to finish up today, I want to also set up a plan for milk. And I want to put that, maybe we could put it, let's see, milk and butter actually is what we need. So maybe we could put it here. We need to have one kitchen making butter. And I'm going to do these together like I kind of just did fruit and fruit juice together, just because it makes sense. So kitchen making butter. If we steam boost this, that means 6 every 5 seconds, which is 1.2 butter per second. Butter we need to have between 0.5 and 2, so 1.2 is a good number. The other thing we could do is do a little bit more, aim for like 1.6, have 2 of them not steam boosted, but I think we're okay at 1.2. I think we're okay. And then that means if we're having 1.2 butter, then we need to have 2.4 milk. For this, put a pin in that, because we need between 2 and 4 milk per second directly for the food market. So we're gonna aim for 3 milk for that. Well, it just so happens that 3 milk is a really good number to use. So if we have milk, if we aim for 3 milk, that is a pasture with the 400% hair plus the 1 upgrade, which puts us at 6 milk per 2 seconds, which is 3 per second. So if we have 2 pastures combined together, making milk. Well, I guess it would go this way. Those 2 pastures together making milk will produce 6 per second, which we can send 2.4 to make butter, and then we can send the other 3.6 directly to the food market to sell directly, which is good because, as I said, we could have up to 4 milk, so 3.6 makes it even better. And that'll work out well actually. So we have 2 pastures making milk. Those pastures together need to have 6 times 2, so that's 12 animal feed together. 12 animal feed, as we've learned over here, is 4 grain mills, because each grain mill can produce 3 per second, 6 every 2 seconds. So that's 4 grain mills total, and each grain mill then needs 1 farm each, just like these do here. And that's 12 grain per second, 24 grain per second total, which is 96 farm tiles, because it's basically multiplied by 4. I'm sorry, it's 24 grain per second, 96 farm tiles total. So I think that's the way to go with this, is to have these 2 together, working together, outputting to the kitchen, and then having them kind of be shared and offloading the extra milk into the train station to send back to the base, back to the food market. So that covers, with 4 of these, and of course I don't have enough room, we're going to have to clean up some more junk here, and 4 farms here, with a total of 96 farm tiles between the 4 of them. That gives us exactly the amount of grain we need, for the amount of animal feed we need, for 6 total milk per second, of which 2.4 is going to be used to make butter, and then the rest is going to be used to make, or to go directly to the thing, to the store. The other option that I mentioned at the very beginning of this piece was, with the kitchen, we can We could also make 2 unboosted kitchens, which would make it 1.6 instead of 1.2 out of 1 boosted kitchen. And then we could do, then that would mean that we would need 3.2 milk coming in, which means we need more of this. I don't think that's a good option because then that starves out the milk going to the store. So I think we'll just go with this as our option. So we need to start hooking all this stuff up eventually and kind of getting it all connected up and all ready to go and kind of operating as this one is and as part of this is. The problem is workers. We've just used up a large chunk of our workers by putting down all these grain mills and all these farms, and we're suffering under a lack of workers. In order to get more workers, of course, we need to upgrade the base. We need to build more houses, but we're maxed out of our houses, so we need to upgrade our base, and the next base upgrade requires purple coins. We already have these. We need the enchanted books and purple coins, so we need to find a way to start selling a few things for purple coins. And the earliest thing that we can sell for purple coins is the mana bricks right here. So that might end up having to be what we end up doing, is shipping in some mana bricks from way out here to start making purple coins. And that way we can start that way we can do this next base upgrade. But then we also need to make the enchanted books, which we aren't making yet either. But we did talk about these crystals are already coming in here anyway. And if we have an enchanter, we could enchant with we could use those crystals to enchant the books we're already making here at the barn. And then use those for research as well as overflowing them to go into a storage for that base upgrade. So we might have to jump into that sooner rather than later, those two things, before we even get back to building a lot of this stuff. But I wanted to do this episode kind of getting us up to speed on what we've already got, and then also planning out the rest of the basic food items that go into the food market before we to kind of get us caught up to where we were kind of leaving off at the end of before we left this series, because I'm as far behind as everyone else is who's watching this in real time. So for those of you who are watching this after the fact and are just cruising through this series, I'm sorry for this episode, but at least this last little bit should have been helpful or should have been useful. And then in the next episode, we'll actually jump in and get to work. So thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now.